I just need to know, Dominic, will the UFC make Conor McGregor's return fight be for a title despite those statistics that we just mentioned?
Yeah, I feel like I just roll my eyes these days when I see people saying that it's obvious that he's going to get a title fight. Is it? Is it though? Is it? I mean, I don't know, guys. No, by the way, no, I don't think the UFC will make Conor McGregor's return fight be for a title. I know that the UFC value Conor so highly, and it's rightfully so. He's brought him quite literally millions, if not billions. Conor said he had a big reason and why they sold the company for 4.6 billion, but I digress. He's made him a lot of money, but at the end of the day, the UFC 90 I'm going to leave 10% leeway. 90% of the time do make the best fights, the most competitive fights, the fights that make the most sense with the rankings, the title picture, etc. Yes, a month ago was outstanding with Hamzat and Nate, but it didn't happen, so it doesn't count. But it still happens sometimes, so that's why I gave him 10%. Conor's not coming back in after snapping his leg in half and waltzing into a title fight at either weight class. I would be utterly shocked. And Noah, I mean, I have Conor McGregor here on my wall. I got a gift of him when he won the double championship. It's a picture. But he does not deserve to come in over anyone and fight for a title. It's that simple. I mean, especially at lightweight, when you haven't won a fight at that weight class since November of 2016. At welterweight, your last one was Cowboy Cerrone. He's retired now, by the way. It doesn't add up, guys. I don't care how big of his social media following is, how many pay-per-views he's going to bring. You could put him up against me and Noah, and he'd sell 1 million pay-per-views. It doesn't matter if he's fighting for a title. All that does is just add a couple extra pay-per-views. That's, if anything, that's all that does. He's going to sell regardless. It will not be for a title. No, it should not be for a title. No, he does not deserve to fight for a title. No, no, no.
Yeah, the obvious answer, he doesn't deserve it. The resume right now, he's lost two in a row, hasn't won a fight at lightweight since 2016, does not warrant a lightweight title shot, and the fact that he won his last win at welterweight was January 2020 against a fighter that went on to lose like six straight after and retired recently. Don't think that warrants a welterweight title shot either. Um, but nobody's questioning if he deserves it or not. When people are saying this,
I know.
and I know you mentioned more than just if he deserves it. I'm just addressing it, layer by layer. As far as nobody mentions him getting a title shot, saying he deserves it.
Right.
Like
Right.
it's never like, oh, well, he deserves to come back due to all he did in the past for the company or whatever. It's never
Yeah.
stuff like that.
Yeah.
Everybody who says it says that that's what the UFC are going to do, which is a point. That is a point of view that me and you use all the time. I mean, we have people come at us for some of our clips where we're talking about,
Yeah.
Hamzat and Paulo or Marlon Vera and Corey Sandhagen being great fights that we think they would do. We would talk about a UFC thinks they need one more for a title, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And people will kind of come at us and we're like, wait a minute, we're just telling you what we think the UFC is going to do.
Right.
We're not telling you what we think should happen.
Right.
Because I think if you focus so much on what we think should happen, that's a point of view that everybody has. Like,
Yeah.
why don't we
It's
talk
always
about
different.
I think we have a good pulse on what the UFC ends up doing.
Yeah.
So we try to speculate before it happens. Now, anyways, that's just a side tangent. But that's where the point of view of these people come from. Yet that should be something we can see, right?
Mm-hmm.
We tend to be able to see a little bit into the future almost for what the UFC heads are kind of thinking, what matchups they really want to put together and whatnot. But I just don't see it with this. Now
No,
I
can't.
understand. I understand the logic. Like the biggest draw in the sport, the UFC value him so much that the idea being that if he wants to come back to a title shot, well, damn it, give it to him because it's gonna break the bank. You're gonna get 1 million plus pay-per-view buys, and if Conor's champion, that's only gonna make the sport get bigger and bigger and all this stuff. And I know that the UFC at times has given people title shots that were unwarranted or just put together weird matchups like the Hamzat Nate Diaz one that didn't end up coming true. But like Brock Lesnar getting a title shot way back in the day. He got it on a, what was he, 2-1 was his professional MMA record.
Mm-hmm.
He had beat Heath Herring and he got a title shot.
Yeah.
But had lost to Farron in his UFC debut. He's 1-1 in the UFC.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, he ended up winning the title, defending the title, but, probably didn't warrant a title shot at the time.
Yeah.
If the UFC actually gave Conor, let's say next March or April, a title fight against either Charles Oliveira or Islam Makhachev or Leon Edwards or Kamaru Usman or whoever, the single most undeserving title shot in UFC history.
There you go.
And Conor might be the guy that could do that, right? He's the biggest. But why didn't they give him a title shot when he came back against Donald Cerrone? Tell me that.
Right.
Why? You telling me him and Habib at that time wouldn't have broke the bank? They literally had the biggest pay-per-view of all time.
Yeah.
Well, okay, he fought at welterweight. Why didn't he fight? Was it Usman at that? Yeah.
It was Usman.
Why didn't he fight Usman at that point?
Yeah.
A month before that pay-per-view with him and Cowboy, guess who main evented the month before? It was Kamaru Usman and Colby Covington. Yeah. So what I'm trying to say, Dom, is they already proven back when he did, yes, he was coming off a loss against Habib, but back then when his return fight was being speculated, I definitely thought they were giving him a title fight when he came back.
Yeah.
And then they gave him Donald Cerrone. And now maybe some of that was personal choice part, wanting to kind of ease his way back in. But if he was trying to ease his way back in, then what's he do this time?
Exactly. If anything, it's going to be the same level, if not even lower, right? Because this time he's not coming off of just a loss. He snapped his leg. He broke his leg. We don't even know if the guy's training. He weighs 206 pounds. I don't think he's ever fighting at lightweight again. I mean, there's so many more questions about Conor, but just a return fight in general, again, it never has to be for a title, but competitively, does he fight Dustin for a fourth time? Do they get Nate to re-sign for one fight and finally do that trilogy? Do they do Conor versus Kamaru, like Noah said? I still love that idea, regardless of if that's for a title or not. I don't care if that is either. There are just other fights to do that don't warrant, that the UFC knows they don't need to put a title for. Therefore, why would they do it? Why would they can keep their competitive standings going because these divisions are on fire. Welterweight's really starting to catch, especially now with Leon as the champion. Lightweight has been on fire for a couple of years now, but now it's really all coming together with these young guys that are surging in. I think the UFC recognizes they can't just throw Conor right into the top three and then risk potentially screwing that all up by him coming a champion. Then is he going to defend? Because remember, guys, he's been a champion in 2 weight classes, never defended a belt. What all would happen there? You put more delays into the division, yada, yada, yada. I think the UFC knows that it's just not quite smart. And again, when you can just sell pay-per-views like this, you don't need to do the title fight. You can keep everything going and still bring Conor back. And, by the way, still be a main event on a pay-per-view, too.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to copy what you just said because this is kind of what you just said, but you literally don't, what is the real purpose of putting him in a title fight now?
Yeah.
Does a fight with him versus Charles or Islam for the lightweight title sell more than him versus Michael Chandler in just a 5-round non-title fight?
Right.
I don't
know. I don't
think it does. Maybe Islam, if you build in the Habib thing.
Right.
I'm kind of thinking that as I'm going. But I still don't even know if that would happen because I don't think Islam's necessarily breaking the bank right now, even though he's the Habib protege and whatnot. But, let's say it's him and Charles. I love Charles Oliveira, and one of the most successful pay-per-views this year was UFC 274 that he headlined. Yeah. So I think he's proving to be kind of building a bit of a reputation for himself. But I don't think that fight sells considerably more than if you do Conor versus Michael Chandler in a main event.
Yeah.
And you can keep Charles fighting the real contenders. Now, there is an element to this where if that's what Charles wants, he wants that life-changing payday. I can't blame him for that, but that's not what I'm here to focus on.
Well, yeah, and no, I'm going to be honest with you too. In my opinion, Conor comes back, regardless 170, 155. If he wins one fight, he is going to get a title fight. That's how it's going to work. So if you're the UFC, you give him, again, it's not tune-ups, it's not easy fights, but I'm saying you give him a matchup that is more winnable than like him versus Charles or Islam. Those are tough. Those are tough matchups for Conor. Charles Oliveira eats left hands for breakfast and then just keeps coming. Islam is Khabib 2.0. Well, we know how Khabib and Conor
you give him a guy like Tony Ferguson.
Yeah, and literally, if he beats Tony at, what is he, ranked 11th, and Conor's like number 12, Conor's getting a title fight. I'd bet $1,000 that he would still get a title fight off of one win. 100%. One win, no matter what.
That's all we're saying. And I wouldn't even complain that much about it.
At least really it would be more warranted than now.
That's what I'm saying. Like, I wouldn't complain if he got a title fight. Like, again, would it feel like, would it really be deserved? No, but that's the business. Like, as long as he gets one win, I mean, that's all I can really ask for. Just do not make his return fight be for a title. That would be a travesty.
And no, just real quick, I don't want to keep tangenting. We were all coming down nitty gritty. 3 questions left, but like, I just don't even like. Yes, I think I'm gonna see Conor fight again, but the other half of me is like, are we? I mean, are we gonna see Conor fight again? Immediate answer, yes. But I have this little bit of just pessimism that I don't know.
Really?
Yeah.
I think we'll see him fight again. I had that feeling you're talking about. That reminds me of kind of the lead up to the Khabib fight. Like, I really just kind of before the Dolly incident, kind of that post Mayweather buzz.
Yeah.
And it went like over a year. It felt at that time that just felt like such a long time, or it was like 2 years in MMA.
Yeah, he was off for 2 years. Yeah,
because he had the boxing fight in between. But once it got right before that Dolly incident stuff, once the Dolly thing happened, well, actually, when the Dolly thing happened, I remember coming into our dorm room, you saying that you're like, yeah, that's the end of his career. We're like, that's it, it's over.
Yeah. And that's probably one of the coldest things I've ever said, by the way.
But I mean, at the time, that seemed like I was like, Dom, you really think they're like never gonna have him fight again because of this? He's like, dude, look at what he just did. And then, sure enough, they used it in fight promotion just a few months later. Yeah. So anything's on the line, I guess, in MMA. But what you said made sense. It was just like funny looking back on it now.
Yeah.
But yeah, anyways, we'll get on to question 5 here. Dom.